Good morning, everyone, and thank you for being here today, especially considering we know that you'd rather we do this via Zoom so you could be home having your breakfast in your nice shirt and your pajama bottoms. This has been quite a year. The commissioners are going to come up here in a couple of minutes and talk to you a little bit about the how and the what of Kootenai County, how we've gotten through the challenges this year, what we've been up to at the county, and what we're looking forward to. So what I've been tasked to do is to start you out for a few minutes with the who of Kootenai County and let you know some of your leaders. We'd love to get you to meet all of us, but there are over 800 employees now, and that wasn't quite feasible, and a lot of them are at home in their nice shirts and chamois bottoms. So first of all, this is our organization chart. If you ever had an interest in this, it is in the main menu of the county website. And we're going to start by introducing you to the county commissioners this morning, who you'll be hearing from. First, we have Chris Fillios. He is in his 4th year as a commissioner for Kootenai County. Then we have Leslie Duncan, who is in her 2nd year as a commissioner, and Bill Brooks, who is also in his 2nd year. Together, they provide approval of the budget. They oversee 16 different departments, including most of our internal departments, such as IT and facilities. We give the commissioners a good chance to get to know each other at the county. They have over 400 public meetings a year on average, plus all of the individual meetings for committees that they're on and meetings with constituents. So we keep them pretty busy. It's definitely full-time. Next, we're going to introduce you to our sheriff's organization. This is led by Sheriff Ben Wolfinger and his undersheriff Ben Mattos. Together, these two gentlemen, not including whatever else they've done in their careers, they have over 50 years, just these two, that they have dedicated to the sheriff's organization. It's impressive. They oversee more than 300 employees, so of the 800, the biggest block of employees, both law enforcement and civilian. And they get to boast this year that they are the home to our 2019 Employee of the Year, Deputy Brett Fletcher. He serves in the Recreation Safety Section as a Back County deputy. And I mean, he's a valued member of his team, as all of our law enforcement are. He's someone that you know you can depend on. But to just give you an example of the kind of dedication and commitment we see in our sheriff's organization, Deputy Fletcher had just come in from a full shift, was getting ready to go home, and heard that there was a hunter that was lost. Got a hold of patrol, said, "How can I help?" and went back out for 7 more hours until he was found. This is the kind of dedication and commitment we see every day out of our sheriff's organization, and we appreciate them so much for everything that they do. Next, let's introduce you to our treasurer's division. Treasurer Steve Matheson is in his 6th year as an elected official at Kootenai County. Chief Deputy Treasurer Lori Thomas has been with the county since 2001. This division holds 3 charges. First, it's the accurate collection of all of the tax money for Kootenai County. We send out nearly 100,000 tax bills. They take in all of that money. They're responsible for the accurate and efficient distribution of that to the taxing districts, and they also, in some cases, act as public administrator for estates. It's a huge undertaking, and they do it with the most streamlined, efficient, professional crew you've ever seen. Next, we have our county clerk under the direction of Clerk Jim Brannon and his chief deputy, Jennifer Locke. Jim is in his 7th year as an elected official for Kootenai County, and Jennifer has been with us since 2017. You can see there that the clerk's division is made up of 5 departments, all of which are mandated by law. The one you probably hear the most about is elections. Clerk Brannon shared with us this week that we are now in excess of 90,000 registered voters in Kootenai County. So you're going to hear more about that later today. It's a huge undertaking, and they are, we assure you, up to the task. Now let's talk a little bit about the coroner's office. We have Dr. Warren Keene as your county coroner. He's in his 6th year as an elected official for Kootenai County, and his chief deputy, Lynn Acevedo. She's been with the county for 13 years. This team of 4 works 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year on behalf of the county. They also teach law enforcement and EMS evidence preservation. They dedicate time to proactive suicide prevention measures and projects, and they teach gun safety. They are all American Board Medico-Legal Death Investigators. Between this staff of 4, there is more than 100 years of medical experience in the county coroner's office. Prosecuting attorney, Barry McHugh is our county prosecutor. His chief deputy is Barry Black. Their division is made up of 4 separate sections, including civil and criminal prosecution, juvenile diversion. They also oversee human resources and risk management for the county. In addition to having jurisdiction over court proceedings, the prosecuting attorney also serves as the legal advisor for Kootenai County itself, and they're responsible for being the legal advisor and prosecutor for all law enforcement agencies countywide. So huge job, again, with a professional, fantastic staff. And finally, the county assessor's office. Assessor Bela Kovacs is the new kid in town for us. He's only been with us since May. Joe Johns has been with us since 1996. We're thrilled to have Bela on board. He's doing a great job. He's fit in remarkably well. Their division is made up of 4 separate departments, including residential and specialized appraisal, administrative services, and the mapping department. They have close to 50 employees there, and that does not count the oversight of the Department of Motor Vehicles as well. They're tasked with making sure everybody gets a fair assessment and that you're assessed at a fair value so that nobody pays too much or too little. They also take in applications for tax exemptions, things like the circuit breaker program. These are essential programs to help our residents with their tax bills. We love having Bela on our team, but as many of you may know, he came to us under the unfortunate circumstance. We had a heartbreaking loss this year of our previous assessor, Rich Hauser, and now I'm going to introduce Chief Deputy Treasurer Lori Thomas to come up here and say a few words about Rich.
Thanks, Nancy. I had the honor and privilege to work with Rich for 19 years. The assessor and treasurer's office, we work pretty closely together. It wasn't always that way, but it kind of started that way when he and I started in our positions. We also served on many management committees at the county. So some days we were just HR people, some days we were doing IT stuff. We kind of just grew into friends. And I thank God every day that I had him as a friend. And I had a good friend that told me when he passed that we are all put on this earth to figure things out, how to make things better for somebody else in the world and how to make the world a better place. Those that pass on early have figured that task out, and Rich definitely was that man that figured things out. Well, most folks in our community relate to Rich as the county assessor. He actually had an impact far further than that across the state and to some extent across the county. He served on many committees for the Idaho State Association of County Assessors Office, and then he also worked nationally with Thomson Reuters, who was the underlying support for the tax and assessment system, and then he was also certified as an International Association of Assessing Officers. It's called IAAO. He also spent countless hours coaching wrestling, baseball, and junior tackle. He also officiated high school and junior college wrestling before being inducted into the Idaho Sports Hall of Fame in 2006. He received the Post Falls Volunteer of the Year Award, and he served on the Post Falls Community Volunteers and the Parade Committee, and you could always find him grilling hamburgers. I think that was something that he really enjoyed doing. He had a huge strength in budgets and numbers, and so he served as treasurer for many countless organizations. He was treasurer for the Post Falls Lions Club. He was part of the Fringe Church treasurer. He served also as the treasurer for the Post Falls Church of the Nazarene. He felt that charity began at home, and that he was always looking for ways to contribute because he felt he had both time and money. And so when he heard of needs in our community, he was one of the first ones to try and brainstorm on how to make a difference. But he always wanted to do it behind the scenes. He never wanted to be in the front. With the approval of the county commissioners, I think it was in June, July, where's Pam? I'm not sure. We're getting ready to unveil the Rich Hauser Memorial Garden down on the administration campus. The commissioners graciously allowed us to do this, and Pam and her family and I have gone out and privately raised the money. There will be no county or government dollars expended, but we are going to have a very nice area for the public and the employees to be able to sit, meditate while they're waiting for services, or employees that are on a break, or they just need to have a downtime moment. So we have raised the money. We're hoping to have an unveiling within the next month. We are just waiting to get approval to get things set into place. So I hope that, while you're at the administration building the next time, take a stroll up and have a little thought. I know that Rich was in and out of the chambers. He served on a couple of the chamber committees as well. And so I would ask that if you're in there getting a driver's license or whatever, stop up and take a look. And like I said, we're hoping to have it done within the next month. Rich left behind his wife, Pam, their 3 gorgeous kids, several grandkids, extended family. His co-workers in the building were his extended family as well. So he did leave a big impact, and big shoes for Bella to start to fulfill. So welcome aboard, but thank you for the time.
Okay then, so good morning, everyone. Thank you, everyone, for attending. Thank you especially to the Chamber, the sponsors. We truly, truly appreciate it, especially during these challenging times. So what I'm going to do is I'll start off first and foremost with the pandemic. On March 15th of this year, I signed the emergency declaration for the county, which I did to dovetail along with the emergency declaration which was issued by Governor Little. What that essentially did was activate the Emergency Operations Center, also known as the EOC, and put in place certain measures under which we would be operating as though we had, and in fact we did have a crisis of sorts. And so what I'll touch on very briefly here is, how did that impact the county? How did we function in light of all these changes? Essentially, most of our departments began working from home, and many are still working from home. And most of the appointments that we make are, in fact, appointments. They have to be made beforehand, and we meet with people on an ongoing basis. And for example, if we look at our prosecuting and defense attorneys, what we have done there is essentially many of the civil and the criminal prosecutions and adjudications have been delayed, and they've been delayed into September and October because of the pandemic. We've also made arrangements to use NIC for jury selection because of the mounting cases as a result of the pandemic. And so that's how they're functioning. Obviously, the attorneys are still meeting with their clients, whether they be in the prison, if you will, or, for example, just clients who are prosecuting or being prosecuted. And so that's functioning almost strictly by appointment. Within our coroners division, and these are divisions that essentially have experienced the greatest change. Coroner division really hasn't seen much change. They tend to attend most of the fatalities that occur that are typically what we call unattended. So from their perspective, the pandemic probably hasn't had a major impact organizationally as it has with other groups within the county. The assessor, again, they're meeting with people strictly by appointment. We were rather blessed this year because we only had some 60-plus appeals before the Board of Equalization. So as you might be aware, every year by law, the 3 county commissioners are transformed, if you will, into the Board of Equalization. And we sit and we hear appeals. They're basically 30 minutes each, and we run through them as quickly and efficiently as we can. And people are not there to appeal their taxes, they're there to appeal their values. And this is probably one of the lowest yearly appeals that we've had for some time. I'm told that if you go back to the Great Recession and some of the depreciation that was occurring, the appeals numbered around 800. So you can imagine, and there's a 2-week time frame within which this has to be completed, and so that was done as well. And let's see, what else can I tell you? Community development, which is headed by our director, David Callahan. They're operating strictly by appointment, despite the fact that we've had a 30% increase in permits year over year. And that's not just residential dwellings, it's dwellings, shops, decks, and other accessory type structures. But it is a dramatic increase, and we have made some changes. We've passed a streamlined comprehensive plan. We condensed it from 200 to 16 pages. The 200-page document does remain as an appendix because there is a lot of very valuable data regarding the county in there. And we've hired additional people. We've lost a few. We've hired a few, especially in the area of enforcement and planning. And so that's how we've been operating. The county, as a result of the entire COVID situation, you might have heard that the state received or is about to receive $1.25 billion. We're getting some $4 million. What's very fascinating and intriguing is that public transportation is getting $4.5 million. So that's quite a boon for them. And they'll be using that to help defray their operating costs over the next several years. And that's where we are with regard to COVID. Some of the highlights for the past, I guess it's been year and a half. We did have 2 advisory votes, as you might be aware, and advisory votes are just that. They are advisory, they're not binding, and as hard as we try, or Nancy does on Facebook, some people can't get it through their heads that they are advisory. Okay, so one was the question of urban renewal districts, and that did pass, and I'm going to give you round numbers. I believe it was about 53 to 47%, so it passed narrowly. The other one, of course, dealt with the prison reentry center, and that passed. That is to say, people rejecting it for Kootenai County handily, and I believe that was about 78% opposed to the reentry and approximately 22% in favor. Within community development, right now we do not have an ordinance that addresses prison release centers. So if the state comes before us and presents it and we were to reject it, we would go to court and the court would say arbitrary and capricious and would rule in favor of the state. So what we have decided to do is put together a series of parameters under which such a petition could be evaluated. And so the hearing before the Planning Commission is tomorrow evening, and then a month or so thereafter it'll come before the BOCC for approval. Okay? I did mention the comprehensive plan update. I'll say something about public defense. We expected during this current fiscal year, which is fiscal year 20, to receive from the state about $750,000. They were very gracious. They gave us $1.5 million, which enabled Ann Taylor, Ann is our public defender, to hire approximately, or still perhaps in the process of, 8 attorneys and 3 or 4 support staff. And as you can imagine, their workload is mounting, especially with the increase in population. We also made what I could refer to as a very dramatic change with regard to employee compensation. Over the years, and when I say over the years, going back 5 or 6 years, there have been at least several wage studies that have indicated that on average, county employees vis-a-vis other public entities are underpaid anywhere from 8 to 15%. And so last year, with the consent of the unanimous consent of the other elected officials, we decided that we're going to proceed with another study, and we will implement, and we did. And so what happened is we said we're going to bring our people up to market. And so last year we attempted the first phase. We managed to succeed. Some of our attorneys got some very reasonable increases. I can tell you that we had one situation in David's organization in community development where a planner was underpaid 40%. Now, obviously, we couldn't do that, but in that case, we managed 18%. And we have lost people, and that's an issue. And it's a major issue when you're growing at 2.5% per year. And so that's what we did. We are following up with it again this year, sort of the next phase to try and complete. Clearly, we haven't been able to bring everybody up to market, but we're trying. Okay, forthcoming for fiscal year 2021, or we'll be confronting the issue of the property tax relief, which you might have heard about, that the state has proposed, which is to allocate some $188 million across the 44 counties to give property tax relief. For us, that would result in a tax relief of about $10 million. However, here's the issue. We've asked for assurances in writing that we wouldn't have to pay that money back. We don't have that. The governor's confident. He has spoken with Treasury. He's U.S. Treasury. He's gone to D.C. In case you're wondering, if you own a $300,000 home, you'd get about a $153 credit. Regarding the budget, let me say this. We are currently operating on a $101.6 million budget. That's the current fiscal year, which ends next month. In fiscal year 21, we're going to be at about 98.5, so we're actually reducing it. Interestingly enough, even as the budget went up in the current fiscal year, the actual tax rate, that is to say the dollars per 100,000, dropped from some 270 to 249 per 100,000, and it'll drop again this year. So people naturally ask, well, why are my taxes increasing? The rapid increase in values. That's what's doing it. Now, what's fascinating there is in the current fiscal year, we have a $20 billion, at the last measure, $20 billion total property assessment in the county. We're now pushing $22 billion for this year. So we've gone up almost 10% in total property valuation. We also have approximately 87,000 taxable parcels in the county. We've got more than that in total parcels, but some of them obviously are tax exempt. So that's where we are. We will be confronting the question of growth shortly. What I can share with you is that during this primary campaign on my political Facebook page, I had 10 times as many hits on the question of growth as on the question of property taxes. And incidentally, you hear a lot about property taxes. We're in the bottom 5 nationally. Property taxes, folks, are not an issue here. Is it a question? Is it an issue for some folks, especially on fixed incomes? Absolutely. And by the way, that problem exists nationwide. When we were living in New Hampshire, and to this day, New Hampshire has no sales or income tax, but they have among the highest property taxes in the nation. So one way or another, you're going to pay, unfortunately. But we do have programs to address the needs of those folks who can't afford them. In any case, I'm done. So I'm going to turn it over to Bill.
It's been a great first year as a county commissioner, but it's been very much an instructive year. I've been in the past in charge of or on the boards of some pretty big companies. And one of the things that I've learned, along with everybody else in business, is if you want to make people happy, sell ice cream. Steve Jobs said that. Don't try to be a leader, because you're not going to make everybody happy. And I never tried to make everybody happy, okay? And there's a lot of people that can attest to that. Before I do anything else, I wanted to recognize Sheriff Wolfinger over there, who's got 37 years in law enforcement. Pardon?
With the county.
With the county. And 12 years as sheriff, is that correct? 8, okay. You don't want 12, huh? But that's one of the hardest jobs these days, to be in law enforcement and be the main individual who's responsible. Dan Matos has also got decades in law enforcement. So we're very, very lucky to have both these men leading our sheriff's department. One of the sheriff's deputies said to me the other day, he said, I said, how is it being in law enforcement? I'm sorry, I can't turn around this way very good. How is it being in law enforcement? He said, you know, nationally it's pretty tough, but here in Kootenai County, he said, I can't buy myself lunch. I go into a restaurant, they buy me lunch. Who did it? They won't tell me. So this is a different kind of a place here, and we're lucky to live here. But the groups that I liaison with, one is the airport, and that's one of the most complicated organizations in the county in terms of having to deal with a lot of federal regulations, FAA, things like that, and airport length and width, and we're in the process of doing some major work out there. But it's going very well. My philosophy in management is not to meddle. I make sure there are good people in good key positions, and then I monitor what they do. I don't try to do their job for them. I find a lot of people that are in over their head tend to micromanage. They'll jump in and start to tinker instead of letting the professionals do what they do. I don't do that. I don't do that in any of the departments that I liaison with. IT is a good example. We have a tremendous IT staff. They keep everything in the county up and running. The internet, it's pretty amazing. I go back there occasionally, and it's like a cave with computers in it. Smaller department is reprographics and mail, and if we don't have good things from them, everything grinds to a halt. It just does. They do a great job. Veteran services, we have 2 people working in veteran services and approximately 16,000 veterans in Kootenai County. And in addition to that, about an equal number of dependents, spouses. So that's about, just say 30,000 people that these 2 people help. And what they help them with is filing claims with the Veterans Administration and getting the services that they're entitled to. Another organization that is near and dear to my heart is the fair. And I liaison with them. This has been a particularly hard year for the fair. Everybody loves the fair, and I don't think there's any place that people felt could be a problem as far as COVID more than the fair, with that many thousands of people congregating in a relatively small space. And they made the very difficult, very agonizing decision to not have the fair this year. They did have some 4-H functions, but they made sure they distanced and took all necessary precautions to have these things be safe. But that was a tough one for the fair. They had to cancel when they did because they have contracts with entertainers and with acts and shows and the bull riding and stuff like this. And if they don't cancel soon enough, they have to pay these people anyway. And it could have, if we had gone to the last minute and then canceled, it could have cost the fair so much money that I don't think they would have recovered any time in the near future. And we just can't afford that. I'll make the rest of this pretty quick, but it's probably the most important things that I've ever talked about. And I'm going to be stressing and pushing for a discussion, and I underline the word discussion, for a change in our form of government in Kootenai County. That is to say, right now we have the form of government are 3 equal CEOs. Now, I'll guarantee you that none of you in this room who've ever been a part of any company or any large corporation work for one with 3 equal CEOs. There's a reason for that. It doesn't work. And we've had it here in Kootenai County since 1890. That's been the way we've done business. Some people call it good old boys. The good old boys would sit around and talk about when we had a population under 4,000 people in the county. But in fact, what they did was they communicated with each other and got the business done. I call it pickle barrel politics. And the problem is we're still practicing that. We have a population that's approaching 170,000 people in Kootenai County. And as a commissioner, and I have 2 good commissioners that I serve with, but I can't, in effect, have a discussion with them, not deliberate, but have a discussion with them about anything. Consider it an illegal meeting. We have a quorum. Go out to coffee, we've got a quorum. Even if you discuss bass fishing in Lake Coeur d'Alene. We have elections four-year term, then 2-year term, then 4-year term, then 2-year term. This is a very unstable form of government. I talked to one of the senior people at the county when I first got there, and I said, why do you have human resources under the prosecuting attorney? That doesn't make any sense to me. I've never seen anything like that. And the person said, honestly, the Board of County Commissioners is too unstable year to year for something as important as HR to be under their purview. And as I got more and more into the county, I found that to be true. The strength of a democracy is that we can discuss anything. We can discuss it. And I'm calling for a discussion to start now regarding the form of county government. It's been done before. There's a great white paper done by Mike Anderson. In 1996 they started and published it in 1997. About 18 pages long. And they had a committee, and they took a vote. They took a vote eventually, and it failed. But people at the county didn't get behind it. You can decide why. But the paper's available to you. I was going to bring some today, but instead I put it on my website. If you go to billbrooks.us, very simple. My name, billbrooks.us. First page, and at the bottom of the page, there's a picture of a pig and me in a tutu. The pig is the one in the tutu. It was at the parade last year. But right underneath that is where you can click on and look at and or download this white paper. And it's quite exhaustive. It's very well done, and I would invite you to look at it. That's what I have. I think we don't have any big problems with our staff. We're lucky to have the people in the BOCC, Leanna and Nancy, and two Nancys, and Terry and Chandra. Is she here today, or is she holding down the fort at home? Okay, so we're it's a tough business. Another elected official, not in the county, said to me, being a county commissioner is the worst job in politics. And I thought, no, it's not. Well, it's a pretty tough job. Pretty tough job. And especially when you're hamstrung with an antiquated system. So I'll leave that at there. And now the trick is to get down here without falling off.
I'm Leslie Duncan, and as Nancy alluded to, I've been here since January of 2019, so it's kind of a late thing to have this time of the year, and that's probably why we don't have a lot of people that are out camping and enjoying the beautiful weather, where we get a lot more people indoors in February, or March. I have a lot of how would you call it? I guess 3 of my liaison departments are under justice system. So adult misdemeanor probation and juvenile probation, they were able to adjust their way of business during COVID, and they were still able to provide the services that they needed to do. And their clients went down a little bit because of the suspension of the court system, but now we're seeing it come back up again. I did want to make, I'll get to courts in a minute. So juvenile detention, that was one that really had to change the way they did business. Luckily, their numbers were really low. They worked with the prosecutors and the judges to keep the juvenile detention numbers down. And that allowed for significant mitigation of CV exposure to the current clients and the staff. Using Zoom, they were able to provide access to attorneys, counselors, and other groups, and they were able to maintain compliance with state standards in spite of the significant operational changes. Chairman Fillios alluded to elections. Right now, the legislature is meeting to make some changes, potential changes to in-person elections. Right now, it's not feasible for Kootenai County to have 70 polling locations. So if the legislature adopts changes, we'll be able to have 3 polling locations, 1 in each legislative district, to allow for in-person voting. So if anybody's interested in being a poll worker, you can sign up right on the website. And I highly recommend it. It's a great fun day. It's a long day, but it's well worth it so we can vote in person. And then otherwise, you can, of course, request your absentee ballot as usual. So I'm looking very forward to hearing what's happening in Boise. And unfortunately, I didn't have an update this morning before we got here. So one of my more active liaisonships is with Parks and Waterways Noxious Weed Snow Groomers. That is all one department handled by a very small staff, and they do an incredible amount of service for the county. So this year, Parks and Waterways was able to get 19 new no-wake and hazard buoys on the Spokane River using no tax dollars. That project will be completed before the 21 season with lights and labeling of the buoys. We were also able to collaborate with Hayden Lake Watershed for 14 new regulatory buoys to be deployed before the 21 season. And also, phase 1 of the Harrison breakwater is due to be installed by December 20th. And that's a fantastic multi-year deal to replace that aging breakwater in Harrison. And it'll be such a great addition to our county. We were also able to enter into an MOU with Post Falls Police Department to assist our Marine deputies in law enforcement on the Spokane River. And it's been really a huge bonus because there's just been a lot of volume of traffic on there. And so we just need more law enforcement out there to make sure that people are following the laws. And of course, our facilities were inundated this year with tons of neighboring states coming to use our facilities because theirs have been closed. So sadly, with the complaints, there's not much else I can tell people except call Governor Inslee and ask him to open up his state, and that would help us quite a bit. So we've been able to adapt and adjust, and there's some other changes coming forward next year too with Parks and Waterways. In March of this year, we had snow groomers combine with them, and this is really exciting. There's going to be some fun changes coming up. We have 300 miles of trails in the National Forest to be groomed, and there's going to be maybe some online, interactive, exciting stuff coming down the road where snowmobile users are going to know a little bit more about the trails that we service. And then noxious weeds. While it sounds boring, it's actually kind of exciting for me because I have about 17 acres and I have all kinds of fun stuff growing there. We inspected 400 parcels this year, and this is a staff of 2. And then 29 sites were targeted for biological control measures with insects, not herbicides. So there's some innovation going on there. 360 county-owned acres were treated, and then there's constant testing going on to provide better recommendations for citizens in how to control the noxious weeds. Building and grounds is another one that I liaison with. So I pretty much get to touch every part of county operations because of building and grounds. Some of our biggest struggles right now is in the justice system. Our public defender and our prosecuting attorney are completely out of room. There's just no more closets that we can, take the broom out and shove people in there. So this board is really looking seriously at a new facility, a new building that potentially can go between the Justice Center and the old courthouse right on the admin campus. Excuse me. What also is happening is this week 2 new magistrate judges are going to be appointed. If these magistrate judges are put in full force, have a full caseload, there's no more courtrooms for them to practice in. Right now, the juggling that goes on, you've got one judge from 1 to 3 o'clock, and if they haven't finished their cases at 3 o'clock, that postpones the next judge's cases. So it's pretty, everything's pretty packed. So with that, we're looking at this new building, which will house the attorneys, which will house the new courtrooms, and even the bailiffs. The bailiffs also are 18 of them, and they have a very, very small space to work in. Jury selection will begin in a couple weeks, and actually we did have an agreement with NIC, but now we're at the fairgrounds because there's a timing issue, and so NIC is not available. So the fairgrounds is graciously set up in a very nice, I got the map yesterday, in a very nice way that we can probably process about 5,000 jurors through there. In order to alleviate some of these situations, it's not, I wish that, just working from home could do that, but already the court system has been burdened with working from home and unable to, I hear judges tell me, I don't want to sentence people over the phone or over Zoom. I want to look at them when we do this, and I think it's really important that we support our court system. So, building a new building is not something that we take lightly at all, but it's something that I think we've gotten to a point where we're just not going to be able to get around. So, Chairman Fillios touched on this before, and I want to get into a little bit more on the subject of property tax relief, and I call it the good, the bad, and the ugly. So the good, Governor set aside this $188 million, and we're going to end up with $10 million. The bad, like the Chairman mentioned, is that it goes against Treasury guidelines, and Treasury's refusing to give us written guidelines. Now, the Governor did meet with U.S. Treasury officials and did meet with White House staff, and he's very comfortable, very confident that this program does fall within the guidelines. Now, the ugly part of it. If for some reason that the program is deemed illegal, then the county, the taxpayers, are going to have to pay the money back, either using all of our foregone balance or a special levy on top of the regular property tax levy. So there's also challenges that are going to be faced by the properties where the escrow accounts pay their property taxes, because once that amount is received, then the escrow amount changes, but then the next year it's going to go back up to normal, so it's going to have to change again. So there's some little nuances and stuff that kind of have given this board pause about this program. So what I kind of want to ask, and as Chairman Fillios mentioned, it's about $45 per $100,000 value. So is this something that we have to make the decision tomorrow night? Is this something that the community can get behind? Yes, even though there's these challenges, even though there's these risks, this is what we want? Or, you know what, the risk is too high, and for that amount of value, I mean, if you own a $3 million house, that's $5,500. I mean, that's, I think my car's worth that. So that's a big deal. But for my house, it's $105. So for me, I have to weigh, just as a taxpayer, is this worth it? So that's kind of the struggles that we're faced with right now. So just by show of hands, a tax relief of $45 per $100,000 in value, or the potential of having to pay that back. I mean, do I have a sense there? I know it's kind of put you on the spot because you're just probably hearing the great details now. And I've heard it from both sides. I've heard conservatives. So Mark says no. Jessica?
My question would be, are you just going to, if you say no, then you just say, no, thank you, you guys keep your $10 million, we're good.
Yes, so that's true. So what Jessica said, if we say no, then actually the $10 million probably gets spread out among the other entities who say yes. Yeah. So, I mean, I can see both sides. On the one hand, the risk might be pretty low. I mean, are they really going to come back and audit all the CARES Act funding that's been put out through the country? Or is it high that, they do audits? And so the ugly part of that really is the fact that if the audit finds an illegal use of funds, that puts in jeopardy all of our FTA funding, all of our airport funding, and other county programs that rely heavily on grants. So I just want you guys to be thinking about that. So, and if you want to chime in at all, see me after, email us, do whatever. But tomorrow night we have to make that decision. And it's not a light one because we want tax relief. I mean, this board wants property tax relief, absolutely. We held our tax increase to 0% this year, so we're serious about it. But the pain to the taxpayers, I think, is what I'm concerned about should this program turn around. So that's kind of one of the bigger things on the thing. I do want to clarify a couple things. Our days run into each other because we have over those 400 meetings. So tomorrow night is our budget hearing at the county. Then Thursday night is the planning and zoning hearing on the prisoner release ordinance change to do that. And I think that, Bill, is that fair food thing still going on, where you can drive into the fair and get fair food?
Yes, fair food.
Yes, so I highly recommend you drive in there and get your fix of fair food, because they did a good job of setting that up. So I do want to talk a little bit about organization. How am I doing? Oh, yeah, I don't have that much left. So. Government is messy. I think it is supposed to be messy. You're supposed to be quick to provide service, slow to provide policy, and it's arranged that way for a reason. When you're in a private business, you can have one CEO because that company can live or die by that CEO. That's private money. That's not public money. When you're talking about public funds, the best thing to do is trust it to a multitude of people instead of just one person. So our form of government, it is messy, but I like it because it's representative. You have 3 distinct people with different backgrounds, with different ideas and values, who represent the county, who people like, okay, I mostly align with this person, so I'm going to call them, tell them what my issue is, and I mostly align with that person or that person. And to me, it gives a more down-to-earth, a more relational function. And my department heads that I've talked to absolutely do not want a county manager form of government because that puts another layer between them and the commissioners are doing the decision making. So when you have that extra layer of bureaucracy, they don't feel like the communication is there. So it's one of those things. Do you want to trade efficiency for communication? Because that's kind of what it is. And yeah, I mean, it is inefficient, and balls get dropped and things happen. But to me, it's worth it to have the representatives there. It's worth it to have an elected sheriff, to have an elected assessor, to have an elected treasurer. So those people are directly accountable to the county instead of having those people hired by one person. And, to me, that's just the kind of the thing I like. All right, so with that, we'll have Nancy Pluff come up and do her presentation, and then we'll stand for questions.
Good morning. As she said, my name is Nancy Pluff. I am the Senior Business Analyst for the county. And the county commissioners believe in true transparency at the county. So they have tasked me with developing some key performance indicators, and we have posted these on our website to be able to show you how the county's doing at any given time. This is the main screen for Kootenai County, and as you can see in the circle, right on the main page, there is a little thing you can click for key performance indicators. And when you click on that, it brings up the little dashboard that you can get to all of the data. Click on the image, and it takes you into the dashboard. Right now, I'd like to quickly cover some of the elections data that we have on here. We have a major election coming up in November. So it's very important that you guys understand voter turnout statistics. On non-presidential elections, we average about 54% turnout for our voters in a major election. When it's a presidential election, it goes up to 87%, which is great news, until you take a look at the number of registered voters as a percentage of the population. In 2018, only 63% of the population in Kootenai County that was 18 years of age and older were registered to vote. So when you take a look at those statistics, for a presidential election, it was about 56, 57% of the people who could vote actually voted in the presidential election. And on the non-presidential election, that goes down into the 46% of the registered voters. So that's kind of shocking to me. And if we take a look at the primary elections that we have, we average approximately 25% of the registered voters. And again, if that's only 60% of the population that is registered to vote, we're getting a very low turnout for the primaries. And in our county, with the ratio of Republicans to Democrats, a lot of our elections for county commissioners, for the sheriff, and all of those other races that we have going on, those are decided in the primaries. And luckily this year with the mail-in ballot, we had 36% turnout, which is great. That's better than we've ever had. But that's still a very small percentage of the population who could be voting. So we definitely encourage you to vote. Please, if you're not registered, register and vote.
And just a quick moment here that I'll jump in. We're hearing a lot of questions right now. How do I get my ballot? How do I register? Well, as we discussed, we have a huge election coming up. Nancy just said we could be looking at up to 87%. So the way you can help us help you with elections this year is to do as much as possible online. IdahoVotes.gov is the official website that the state has set up. You can do just about everything you need to do on this website. If you go to the FAQs up there, your question is probably answered right on the website. You can go to the online voter tools, request your ballot, check on the status of its return, find your polling place, check your voter record, register, and update. So the more we can do online, the better this will be to help with the success of this upcoming election. And as Commissioner Duncan mentioned, right on our website, the front page, you can click on elections and find out how to be a poll worker. We need all the help we can get. Please spread the word.
We wanted to make sure that you knew the kind of data that's available on our website, and you can easily go and click on these yourself and take a look at it. As Commissioner Fillios said, our property tax rates are very low for the state of Idaho. In fact, we are lower than the state average of all 44 counties in the state of Idaho. So, and this is taking in all of our taxing districts in the county. Our rates are still lower than every other county that's the top 4 counties based on population. Ours are by far the lowest. So that's great news. And then when we take a look at property taxes, there are 46, I think, taxing districts that we collect money for. We are only responsible, and the commissioners only have control over our portion. And as you can see from this pie chart, we represent approximately 25% of your property tax bill. That is the only thing that the commissioners have control over. So when they talk about 0% tax increase, that's for our portion. They have no control over whether or not any of these other taxing districts, the school districts, the cities, the fire, anybody else who collects property taxes, if they're having a property tax increase, the commissioners have no control over that. So for our portion, 0% tax increase for next year. Now this is the assessed valuation cycle that we've seen. The area that's dark blue in the back is the valuation, property valuation for our county. And as you can see, it's been skyrocketing recently. But the great news is prior to the Great Recession, you can see in the blue bars, the light blue bars that are showing there, we had a really sharp percentage of increase that was not sustainable. So our market crashed, we went into the Great Recession, and now we are starting to recover. Now, even though our assessed values are going up higher than they've ever been, it's at a steady rate of increase that is sustainable, and our economic forecast is looking pretty good. Our number of jobs in our county have also been going up, and that's thanks to a lot of the work done by the Economic Development Corporation in bringing businesses here. but our number of jobs keep going up from year to year to year, which is great news for our county. And this is our population since 2009. And I wanted to show you this because we have a census coming up this year, and they're out there taking their data now if you have not already responded. The last data that we have for the census, and these are estimates between the census numbers, was for July of 2019, and that was 165,697. More than likely, as of right now, we have exceeded 170,000 people in our county. But we won't know for sure until the census comes back. Now, in 2010, our estimate was just a little bit high. In 2009, the census brought back our figures, and we reduced by about 896 people. So that's how close their estimates come for the census. So I would bet that we are about 170,000, but we'll know more when the census comes out. And this is our historical population from 1920 on. And you can see how the county has been growing over the years. And if we take a look, these are the percentages of increase. It was the 1970s and the 1990s where we saw the biggest percentage increase every year across the decade. But for the last decade, from 2010 to 2019, we're averaging about 2.2%. We have some real-time data available on our website. And right now, Nancy's going to show you some of our building permit trends. As Commissioner Fillios mentioned, they're very busy in community development. They've had a 30% increase in permits this year. On our website, there is live data that you can take a look at, and this is data as of right this minute. If a permit was finalized, it will be counted. So here is the data for building permits as of this year. If you go on the trends, this shows over the last 10 years. This shows the 30% increase this year so far. Well, that was in 2019. We're 30% more than that. And then we also have some live budget data that is taken straight from our financial system. So we call this our gauges. And if you take a look at the gauge, you will see the big blue bar at the top shows the total budget. And there is a black line showing how much of the budget we should have used to date. So if it is to the left of that line, then we are trending under budget. It is to the right of that line, we are trending over budget. And the dollar amount in the center of that gauge shows how much we've spent to date. We also have data on the bottom that splits it out between the personnel expenses, the operating expenses, and our capital purchases. Click over on the side, you can take a look at other fiscal years if you would like to, or other departments. This is the BOCC budget. So if you wanted to see how the airport was faring, how Parks and Waterways was faring, how the commissioner's budget is doing for this fiscal year, you can click on any of those departments and it will show you as of right now how that department is doing with its budget. This is our internal budget, very similar, but over on the side, we have a list of our accounts that we can take a look at. So if we wanted to switch between the departments, this is the sheriff's budget. If we wanted to shift between departments, we could click over on the left-hand side, also with the fiscal year, but we can also click on any of the accounts over on the right side. It will automatically adjust the budget, the graphs, for those expenses for that account. So you can see if any individual account is trending over or under budget. So we use these in the commissioner's office pretty frequently to monitor our budget, but we have provided them to other elected officials also to be able to take a look at their budget and see how they're trending.
We thank you all for being here. Special thanks to Jeff Crow from Bunkhouse Media, who is recording this for us today. If you would like anyone to think they'd be interested in this, it'll be on CDA TV. And thank you to the Chamber for having us today. Thank you so much.
Everybody, get to work then. So thank you all for coming. Thank our commissioners for being here real quick. I have to give them a round of applause for all the work that they do for our county. Thank you to Nancy. And Nancy, thank you so much. Those are great information for us all. Thank you for being here. I know we're a few minutes late, so everybody have a great day. Thank you for your support as always, and we'll see you at the next event.